This is the Warrior Week in Review. Looking back at the past week, we will discuss how your Warriors did in all sports, with coaches' interviews and sounds of the game. Only on the official voice for Warrior Athletics, 89.5 KQAL.
Hello, Warrior fans, and welcome to the Warrior Week in Review. I am your host, Lukas, DeGarmo. In the studio with me tonight, Steve, Carley, Connor, Doyle, and Cody, Rondeau. We're broadcasting from the Phelps Studio on the campus of Winona State University. Guys, we're going to start talking about men's basketball. Steve and I made the trip to Wayne, Nebraska, as well as Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Big win for the Warrior men on Friday night against Wayne State, Steve. The Warrior men won 76-61. Check that. That's the women's score, actually. The Warrior men actually beat Wayne State 58-49 in a low-scoring affair, and it was a game that the Warriors needed to win because they had a big test on Saturday night against Augustana College, and that one was a thriller, probably the most thrilling game this season. The Bemidji State is up there as well, but Winona State lost another nail-biter against a game they had won. And, Steve, they lost a buzzer-beating shot with 0.3 seconds on the clock from freshman Cameron McCaffrey. What a game to be a part of. We're lucky to have broadcasted it, but it's too bad Winona State couldn't come out on top.
Too bad they couldn't hang on and hit their foul shots down the stretch, as they had a 2-minute period in the second half where they went without a field goal from about the 7-minute mark to about the 4.5-minute mark, roughly. But, I mean, Augustana, credit to them, as they just made a run. But back to this Wayne State game where the Warriors went in to Wayne, Nebraska against a very, a good, a decent Wayne State men's basketball team, as they like to slow it down. And they really, on the defensive end, just shut down Brett Spiker and Brad Starkin, as they only combined for 17 points in this low-scoring affair. Wayne State was desperately looking for a victory, as they had a 4-game losing skid coming into that ball game. But Winona State took care of business behind David Johnson, 17 points. They forced Wayne State into 12 turnovers, and they actually, even though they came up short in the rebounding battle, John Wahlberg played some nice minutes off the bench, 15 points in 15 minutes.
Yeah, and that was a game, again, a final score, Winona State 58, Wayne State 49. It was a game Winona State needed to win because they had a game against Augustana, a team that was ranked 4th at the time in the Central Region. It still is ranked 4th, and it's come out on Wednesday. But now we'll go talk about that Augustana game. Winona State lost 82-81. David Johnson had the leading scorer for Winona State with 24 points, 8 of 12 from the free throw line, 7 of 11 from the floor. Winona State only took 12 threes. They usually take a lot more than that. Made 5 of them. That's 42%. Pretty good. Not bad anyways. 60% from the field. They did have 17 turnovers. They actually won the battle of the boards 25-22, which is something they usually don't do. On paper, Steve, it looks like Winona State won the game, but they had the 17 turnovers, only forced 13 turnovers. They had a lot of big guys step up. David Johnson, Humphrey had 15 points. Clayton Vetty had his best game of the season and 18 points, only missed 2 shots, 8 of 10 from the floor. Ben Fisher had 12 points and 8 assists. But crucial mistakes in the last couple of minutes. You don't want to pick anybody out, but obviously a couple of big missed free throws from Brad Meyer. Obviously not all his fault. Those are tough free throws to make. David Johnson missed 4 free throws. He usually doesn't miss free throws. It was just a game, I think, as a team. Winona State, and Brady Moore said this in the post-game interview, they grew from this game because they dominated for almost 40 minutes. The last 5 minutes of the game, I think you could say Augustana played better. But Winona State was in control, and Augustana is a great basketball team. For Winona State to play that well, have a 16-point lead on Augustana with 7 minutes to go, it says a lot about the team, but at the same time, you got to finish, and I think Brady said in the post-game interview, as I mentioned, they got to learn from this. They got to take things from this game and utilize that in the postseason, the conference tournament, the last few games they have in the regular season this year. That's going to be what's important. The other side of the ball, Cameron McCaffrey for Augustana, he was just having one of those nights where you just cannot miss. His stat line, 29 points, 12 for 17, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He played 28 minutes off the bench. A freshman. he's going to be a great player in this league for a long time.
Yeah, recruited all the way out from Oregon. Cameron McCaffrey really taking the Augustana Vikings on his shoulders and then some. Cody Schilling, tied for the leading scorer on Augustana. He put up his 19 points, but nobody else really on Augustana stepped up as David Foster was in foul trouble the whole game long. He only had totaled 6 points, but you look at Winona State, they shot 75% from the floor in the second half, shot 75% from beyond the arc, but it was the second half free throw percentage, 58% from the charity stripe when you shot 88% in the first half, and that was the downfall, and that's what led Augustana right back in it because, as Brady Moore said in the postgame show, they had nothing to lose. They were down by 16 with 7 minutes to go. They could just go down and they could just chuck up threes all game long, and
right.
then, they got a field to fall, and they got the momentum behind them back in the Elman Center, and Winona State, they played a fantastic 35 minutes out of 40 minutes of this ball game, and it's just really sad to see them drop the last 5 minutes, even though seeing them play how they did on this road trip, really, it makes you excited for the conference tournament and maybe if they in the regional tournament, as they really meshed together well and started playing defense back to the old Warriors.
Yeah, looking at the conference standings on the men's side of the NSIC, Winona State is at 4th right now. They're in pretty good shape. You want to be in the top 4. I think I think their goal for their last 3 games, just maintain that 4 spot. They'll have to play a tough 5 seed and probably Concordia St. Paul. Every team has about 3 games to go. Winona State's 11-6 in the conference. Ahead of them, Minnesota State 15-2, St. Cloud State 14-3, Augustana 12-4. Winona State, as I mentioned, 11-6. Concordia 10-7. Concordia is on a tear. Them and Northern State maybe are playing a lot different than they did in the first half. Both those teams struggled out of the gates, and then in the second half of the conference season have really turned it on. Concordia St. Paul, a few weeks ago, they were not in that top 8. Now they sit at 5 with the chance still mathematically to, without question, host a first-round conference tournament game. So that's surprising, and it's Winona State. It's in their shoes. They can still host a first-round conference tournament game right now if the season ended. They would. They're at the 4 seed. Mankato, St. Cloud, Augustana ahead of them. In the top 8 looks like after Winona State, Concordia, Mary, Northern State, Southwest Minnesota State. So on the outside looking in at 9, 10, 11, Wayne State, Upper Iowa, Bemidji State. Those teams probably not going to get to that 8 spot because Southwest is 8-9, Wayne State 7-9. So Wayne State still has an opportunity. Upper Iowa 7-10, probably not. Looking at last week's regional standings, a lot of shakeups here on the men's side of things, especially from the RMAC. Mesa State has been one since the regional rankings have come out. They split. They won at Western State, who is a 2-13 team, but then they lost at Western New Mexico, who has a losing record. So they split. Then you look at the 2 spot, Mankato. They split as well, beat Concordia at the Gangelhoff Center in St. Paul, but then lost at St. Cloud State. That's a tough loss. St. Cloud State in the last week's regional polls was 5th. So you look at you compare Mesa State's and Mankato's loss. Mankato's obviously a better loss than Mesa State, but Mesa State still a very good region record. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. I would imagine they would stay at 1 and 2 respectively. I don't think that Mankato could jump by losing at St. Cloud State. If they would have beat the Huskies, I think no doubt they'd jump Mesa State, but it didn't happen. Metro State was at 3. They lost twice to 2 good teams, Colorado Christian, Colorado Mines. So they're probably going to fall. Augustana got 2 good wins, hosting Upper Iowa, hosting Winona State, who was 7th in the region. So they're probably could jump Metro State without question. St. Cloud State had 2 outstanding wins, Southwest Minnesota State and Mankato. So you got to look, St. Cloud and Augustana, they're probably going to move up. Metro State will probably drop down from 3 to maybe 6 or 7. St. Cloud State, I mentioned, Fort Lewis lost twice to 2 good teams, New Mexico Highlands and Colorado State Pueblo, but they still lost twice. Winona State split, as we mentioned. In the 8, 9, 10 spot, the New Mexico Highlands beat Fort Lewis, a good team who was ranked 6th, and Adams State, not a good team. Winona State also beat them. Mary had 1 game. They lost. Colorado Mines at the 10 spot, won twice. So, Steve, there's going to be a lot of movement. I think Augustana and St. Cloud probably on the rise. Metro State on the low. Winona State probably going to stay. I don't think they have anything to worry about dropping out of that top 8, but I do think that they may fall to 8, maybe even. I think they'll stay at 7 if I really had to guess, because I think Metro falls to 6, Winona State stays at 7.
Yeah, Winona State, I don't see them moving up at all, or they could get jumped But they're not going to fall down to that 9 spot or 10 spot. I mean, they had a quality win at Wayne State on a tough road trip, and I mean, even though they got a loss, it was a tough opponent in Augustana, and they were ranked ahead of them. As you said, Augustana and St. Cloud should both move up, so your 1-2 should stay the same, and Augustana and St. Cloud should move up to 3 and 4 with maybe St. Cloud jumping Augustana, maybe just because of the win against the 2 seed in the regional of Mankato, but I doubt they jump that just because regional committee usually looks at the whole season, not just what happened this previous week.
Right. Warrior men get back underway next weekend. They only have one game next weekend at Bemidji State. That game will have an unusual tip-off, 4 p.m. in the afternoon. The men will tip off before them at 2 p.m. That game from Bemidji State, so be sure to listen to Steve Carley and myself. Lukas DeGarmo will be on the call. Moving on now to Winona State women's basketball. Tough road trip for the women, disappointing. They wanted a split. Steve, you talked to head coach Scott Ballard earlier in the week. We played that interview last week on this show. He wanted a split. I think a lot of the coaches were saying that. Obviously, they want 2 wins, but they're hoping for a split. Didn't happen. Lost to Wayne State. Didn't play their best game, and then really struggled with Augustana. Lost big to Augie. Going to the Wayne State game, Winona State lost 76-61. Few players in double figures. Natalie Gigler had 14 points, 50% from the floor, 7 of 14. Anna Wartz had 11 points, and Michelle McDonald had 12 points and 5 rebounds. Winona State just couldn't get it done. Ashley Arlen, an incredible second half. She ended with 21 points, and that's she showed us why she is probably the favorite right now, Steve, to win the NSIC Player of the Year.
Yeah, she had just a fantastic outing. I mean, you can only hope to contain her. You can only hope that she has an off night, but playing in Rice Auditorium where they're undefeated on the season, 12-0 perfect record, actually 13-0 now since they beat Upper Iowa on Saturday night. But Ashley Arlen, 8 of 17, 21 points, 6 rebounds. She did have 6 turnovers, but she played a fantastic ball game that led Wayne State over Winona State. And Winona State, they just, in the first half, they couldn't get going, as they know they're a slow starting team. They only shot 36% in the first half. You look at Michelle McDonald, 12 points, but it was a quiet 12 points. She didn't rebound the basketball very well as Wayne State dominated the boards. Wayne State plays that zone defense, and Winona State really had trouble with it on Friday night. And, they just couldn't find a way to get over that hump. They'd cut the lead down to about 5, and then all of a sudden Wayne State would pull it back away to about 10 or 11-point lead. Then it just, was too little too late for Winona State.
The Augustana women beat Winona State on Saturday night 93-71. Just not a good game at all for the Warriors. Winona State, Natalie Gigler again led the Warriors in scoring, 18 points, 6 of 13 from the floor, 6 of 8 from the free throw line. Michelle McDonald had 10 points, 9 rebounds, 4 of 4 from the floor. Winona State shot 41% as a team, only 32% from beyond the arc. Just a game in which they did not at all play their best basketball. Augustana, on the other hand, had 5 players in double figures, including Megan Doyle, who was the player of the week. She had 23 points. Lydia Nelson had 15. Molly Hayes had 10. And Alex Feeney and Tessa Wilka for Augie had 12 points apiece, and Feeney had 12 rebounds to go along with her 12 points. Augustana, you got to be impressed with their weekend, Steve. They scored 104 points on Friday night, obviously against a bad Upper Iowa women's team, but still 104 points is 104 points, and then, of course, the 93 put up against Winona State. So maybe the worst defensive game Winona State has played, but you got to give credit to Augie because they were shooting an inordinate amount of threes. That was their game plan, was just to chuck up threes, and it ended up paying off. They shot 44.8% from beyond the arc, and they put up 29 three-pointers. So that's a lot of three-pointers to still shoot 45%.
And Winona did what they were supposed to, get to the free throw line, try to pound it inside. But they made 21 out of 25 free throws, but it was the other shots. They couldn't make a shot from beyond the arc. They couldn't make a shot inside the arc, as 38.5% shooting, 10 of 26 in the second half, and only 1 of 8 from beyond the arc in the second half really, prevented a comeback if there was all going to be a comeback after being down 21 points at halftime. I mean, you look at players like Claire Steffen, 3 of 13 from the floor, 3 of 10 from beyond the arc, only 9 points, and Anna Wirtz, 1 of 5 over 3 from the field, only 4 total points, and here's 26 minutes of play. Just, a game you'd like to forget. Winona State 3-5 in their last 8 games, and, they just can't seem to get on a roll or find any rhythm, because every time they win a game, they lose a game. Every time they win a game, they lose a game, and, it's just not what you want to do coming down the stretch into February. You don't want to be dropping in the standings. You want to be getting better as you go along, and the Warriors, they just can't seem to find their niche yet.
Winona State, the women are 9-8 in the conference, 14-10 overall. That puts them tied for 7th with Southwest Minnesota State. And the good news about that is that means they're in the 8th spot right now. And if the season ended today, Winona State would make the conference tournament, but just barely over Minnesota State Mankato, who is 8-9. So Winona State has a couple game leeway over Mankato. Good news is for the Warrior women, they'll probably make the conference tournament without question because, of course, the remaining schedule is pretty favorable. They still have Upper Iowa again, which has not won a game in the conference. They're 0-17, and they still play St. Cloud State, who is 13th in the conference with a 4-13 record, and then they still have the game at Bemidji State, 6-11. So they have 3 games against teams that are in the bottom 4 of the conference. So if Winona State can win out, you would think they maybe could get to the 6 or 7 spot because you don't want to have to travel to as that 8 seed to up to the Gangelhoff Center where they already got blown out earlier this year by a very good Concordia St. Paul team.
Yeah, I mean, they do have some stuff going for them, even though it's not looking pretty right now, as they're 11-10 for an overall record and 11-10 in the regional record so far. But you look, they've beaten Minnesota Duluth, which is number 7 at the moment. They've beaten Moorhead, which is number 5 at the moment. They've beaten beat Wayne State here at home, which is number 4 at the moment. So you've beaten 3 teams so far in the top 10 of the regional rankings. So they have that going for them. So if you can, get on a roll here at the end and make a good run in the conference tournament, hope Colorado State Pueblo and maybe Colorado Mines lose a game or 2 here coming down the stretch, you might still be able to eke your way into that regional spot.
Bad news for Winona State. They are 9th in the region. The team ahead of them, Colorado State Pueblo, split, beating Adams State, who is ranked 3rd, and then losing to Fort Lewis, who is ranked number 1. You got to think Colorado State Pueblo is only going to go up with splitting on that weekend, and then Colorado Mines at 10. Won 2 games. So Winona State, I think, is probably out of the top 10 for now. Hopefully, they have 3 winnable games. They can get back into that area with the conference tournament coming up as well. Duluth won 2 games. Augie won 2 games. Wayne won 2 games. Concordia won 2 games. And Fort Lewis won 2 games. So I don't think there's going to be too much movement in the women's regional rankings come Wednesday. The next game for the Winona State women, just like the men, next Saturday at Bemidji State. The Winona State women will tip off at 2 p.m., the men following at 4 p.m. Guys, let's move now to Winona State Gymnastics with Connor Doyle.
On February 6th, the Winona State women's gymnastics team competed in the Best of Minnesota meet. That's against the University of Minnesota, Hamlin, and Gustavus. They finished 2nd in that meet, posting a score of 178.725. Minnesota won that meet handily, with a score of 194.95. Of course, the University of Minnesota is a Division I program. Then on February 12th, they defeated the University of Wisconsin Whitewater in a duel. They beat the Warhawks 185.25 to 182.5. Some standouts in the past 2 weeks for the Warriors, the first being Anna Gleason. In the most recent meet at Whitewater, she finished first in the floor exercise with a score of 9.6, second in the uneven bars with a score of 9.25, and second in the beam with a score of 9.45. All 3 of those are career best for Anna. Also posting some setting a new career bar is Heather Rumeline. With her all-around score of 37.300. She also tied for first in the vault with a score of 9.475. Katie Gregory also posted a career best on the floor with a score of 9.5, which got her 3rd in the meet against University of Wisconsin Whitewater. Upcoming here for the Warriors gymnastics team, on the 19th, they're at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse. On the 22nd, they have a home meet against Hamlin. That is the last home meet of the year, so all those listening should definitely come and see that. It's a great thing to watch. The 28th, they are at the Hamlin Invite, and then the 7th of March is NCAA Regionals. So postseason. The postseason for the gymnastics team is coming up soon, so good luck to all the girls.
Our very own Steve Carley met up with head coach for the women's track and field team, Mason Rabarchek.
Coach, who have been some players that have really stuck out in practice or in the first couple meets?
So far, we've got a few national qualifiers. Rebecca Steer, juniors, qualified in both of the throws. We've got another thrower, a freshman, Mary Tyson. She's also qualified for nationals in the shot put. Kelly Shaw, also another freshman, has hit a national qualifying mark in the 400 meters, as well as our 4x4 100-meter relay of Kelly Shaw, along with Catherine Helmers, Britt Rinda, and Beth Braun. And then our sophomore sprinter, Kate Dine, has also hit a national qualifying mark so far.
You're ranked 12th nationally currently. Does that put a target on your back or any added pressure?
No, not really. They've come up with a new way to do the national rankings this year, and it's much more. It's a much better way of ranking to show you where you're at nationally, and I think it's different than a head-to-head sport like a basketball or football, something like that. It's just based on the performances you've put out there, and I think it's just a good indicator of where every team is at this point.
What is the toughest thing about coaching track and field?
Toughest thing? I think it's coming down to knowing how to train each athlete individually, even though you have to train them. For instance, your quarter milers, you've got 10 of them that you're all training pretty much the same way, but everyone's body responds differently to training. So knowing how to tweak each person's training to get the most out of them.
What do you feel is the strength of this year's track and field team? Is it the distance running, the jumps, or what is your strength?
I'd say our top two areas would probably be our sprints and our throws, but the throws would definitely be the strongest group on the team this year.
What is there one thing that you want Warrior fans to know about track and field?
Well, a couple of them. We've got a brand new outdoor track. I know it's indoor season right now, but we built a brand new track, and we'll be having a meet May 1st this year. It'll be our first home meet, and longer than anybody can even figure out how long it's been. And then I guess the other thing would be 2 weeks. The last weekend in February, we'll be at MSU Mankato for our conference championships.
That was Steve Carley interviewing the head coach for the women's track and field team. Cody, Rondeau, continue with women's track and field.
All right, well, the Warrior women's this weekend continued their hot streak for themselves at the Division I competition at the Iowa State Track and Field Classic. The Warriors put up more provisional and automatic qualifiers for the national championships with a bunch of school records. Rebecca Steyer had an automatic qualifying throw in the shot put with a distance of 46 feet, 10 1/4 inches, finishing 12th out of the 69 pool. Mary Theisen also put up a provisional qualifier in the shot put with a 44-foot, 9 1/2 inch, and she finished 12th. Caitlin Dine set a new school record for the 60-meter dash in her preliminary race with a time of 7.71 seconds, and that moved her onto the final heats where she ended up finishing 15th out of the field of 88 with a time of 7.76 seconds. Another school record-breaking time for the 4x400 women's team was Beth Braun, Kelly Milkent, Brittany Rinda, and Kelly Shaw with a time of 3 minutes 52.32 seconds, which is also a qualifying time. They finished 17th out of 43 teams. A standout for the Warriors indoor track team was senior Caitlin Jensen, who gave them a little bit of standing in the indoor track and field championships. She finished with 3,081 points in the pentathlon and finished 6th to give the Warriors 3 points in the league title. Jensen also won the shot put with a throw of 37 feet, 2 1/4 inches. Upcoming meets for the Women Warriors, they will be on the road on this Friday, February 19th, against the University of Wisconsin Lacrosse / Augustana, Illinois Triangular Meet.
Thank you very much, Cody. That was Cody Rondeau with the women's track and field team. Tune in to KQAL this weekend and listen to Warrior basketball from Bemidji, Minnesota. The Warrior women tip off at 2 p.m. and the men at 4 p.m. Steve Carley and myself, Lukas DeGarmo, will be on the call. Catch everything right here on your official voice for Warrior basketball, 89.5 KQAL. That's it for the Warrior Week in Review this week. Thanks for listening, Warrior fans. And until next time, for Steve Carley, Cody Rondeau, and Connor Doyle, I am Lukas DeGarmo.